Look at this one hoof. Not the horns, not the moon, not even the faces around the circle. The smallest gesture in Goya's Witch's Sabbath may be the key to the whole painting. The black goat stretches one hoof toward a child as if performing a blessing, but something is wrong. It is not a blessing, it is a reversal. And once you see that, the scene stops being just a nightmare of witches. It becomes a painting about a world where reason has been turned upside down. At first glance, the composition is simple. A barren hill, a cold night sky, a crescent moon. Around the center, women gather in a circle, their bodies bent toward one figure, a huge black he-goat, crowned with leaves, sitting like a dark priest before his congregation. But Goya does something clever. He gives the goat the position of authority. Everyone else is turned toward him. The light seems to gather around the bodies, but the goat remains almost swallowed by darkness. He is both the clearest figure and the hardest to fully read. Now, return to the hoof. The gesture is aimed toward the child being presented to him. In Christian art, a raised hand can mean blessing, protection, sacred authority. But here, the sacred gesture has been corrupted. Several interpretations describe this as an inversion. The goat uses the left hoof instead of the right, turning the language of blessing into something sinister. That is why this detail matters. Goya is not only painting evil, he is painting a parody of holiness. The goat even wears leaves that recall the imagery of Bacchus, the ancient god linked with intoxication, frenzy, and ecstatic rites. So the creature is not a random monster. He is a hybrid symbol: devil, idol, false priest, and theatrical performer all at once. And that theatrical quality is important, because this painting was not made for a church or a public square or an Inquisition courtroom. It was one of a group of small witchcraft paintings connected to the Duke and Duchess of Osuna, enlightened aristocrats who collected art, books, and ideas. The series was meant for their country estate, El Capricho, near Madrid. So why would enlightened patrons want a painting like this? Because in Goya's world, witchcraft was not only a fantasy, it was also a way to talk about ignorance, fear, and manipulation. Spain still carried the memory of witch trials, especially the famous Logroño auto da fe of 1610. Later writers, including Leandro Fernández de Moratín, treated those stories with a critical, almost satirical eye. Goya seems to enter that same territory. He shows superstition not as a harmless old tale, but as a system of power. Look again. The goat does not need to attack anyone. He only has to extend the hoof. The group already obeys. This is the real horror of the painting. Not violence, submission. Around the hoof, every body leans into the ritual. The women seem absorbed, frightened, or convinced. Some figures in the distance glow like ghosts beneath the moon, and bats move through the sky like pieces of the night itself. But these details all point back to the same center, the authority of the goat. And there is another layer. At the same time Goya was working on these disturbing images, he was also developing Los Caprichos, his famous series of prints attacking superstition, hypocrisy, and irrational behavior. One of the most famous ideas associated with that world is that when reason sleeps, monsters appear. In Witch's Sabbath, the monster is already awake. But maybe Goya's target is not the witches. Maybe the real target is the viewer who believes the image too easily. Because this scene is deliberately staged like a false ceremony. The goat imitates a priest. The circle imitates a congregation. The hoof imitates a blessing. Everything borrows the shape of religion, but empties it of protection and fills it with fear. That is why the left hoof is so disturbing. It is not merely pointing, it is transforming meaning. A gesture that should protect becomes a gesture that claims possession. A ritual that should save becomes a ritual that terrifies. And this may be Goya's sharpest satire. Superstition works by copying the forms of truth. It uses symbols people already recognize, then twists them until fear takes the place of thought. So when you look at this painting again, do not start with the horns, start with the hoof. Because in that single dark gesture, Goya may have hidden the whole accusation. The most dangerous monster is not the devil in the painting, but the human habit of surrendering reason to whatever raises its hand with authority, or in this case, its hoof. So what do you think? Is Goya showing a supernatural ritual, or is he exposing how easily people can be controlled by fear?